Looks like they're leaving the lights pretty far behind right now. As of right now, we do not have official wave light pacing confirmed. And it may just be taking the lights a little bit to get into their swing. And so we'll let them do that. We'll focus on the race right now. Our early pace setter is taking us out. Keep an eye out as we go for the pace setters wearing the sideways 8s. I like to call them the infinity signs as we go. Right there in second is one of our finishers in this race. That's Arlette Concepcion from Houston Christian. And right behind her, wearing the hip 17, is Heidi Nelson from Rice. Coming up to our first 400-meter split in a pretty fast clip, 75 seconds for the racing field at the front. That's 5-minute mile pace for comparison. And if you're thinking about kilometers, you go 75 for 400, 230 for 800, and add another 37.5 second 200, and you'll get yourself to 312.5 seconds. Correction, 307.5. What am I doing? Either way, that's pretty fast K split. We're gonna keep our eyes peeled mainly for the kilometer splits. The halfway split, that'll be 2,500 meters. And look at this. Concepcion, who looked like she was gonna use the pace setter who's in second to draft off of, has taken this race up for her own. To heck with the wave lights, to heck with the pacers. She's gonna go out and time trial this thing for herself. Arlette Concepcion from Houston Christian leads through the first 800 of this 5K in 2:36. She's a senior this year, grew up in Pearland, Texas, went to Dawson High School, has achieved some pretty significant marks throughout her collegiate career, especially in the cross-country fronts. Having placed top 50 in the South Central Division I region, and even 5th place at her conference meet at the SLC Cross Country Championships. 3:15 was our first kilometer. So considering what kind of pace that would get them to, I'd estimate that'd be a 16:15, right? Because if you multiply by 4, you'll get an even minute, carry the 1. And you've got 16 if you add that 5th 3 minutes plus another 15 seconds. So 16:15 pace for Arlette Concepcion. I'd reckon the rest of the field will try and figure out their own pace, whatever that ends up being, whatever that ends up becoming as the laps continue. Concepcion's fastest 5K in cross country that we have seen from her is a 16:44.7. And as if setting a PR by 10 plus seconds in the 10K wasn't impressive, how about doing it in the 5K? That's what she's trying to do. Nothing's for certain, nothing's a lock. She has chosen to do it all out on her own, leading by 20 meters. In second place right now in the racing field, you see the Sooner jersey right there. That's Oklahoma's Sophie Coughlin, right on the outside shoulder of the initial pace setter, who is now choosing to set the pace for the rest of the field. Coughlin, the UConn transfer, has junior eligibility. She's never broken 17 minutes before in the 5K, so this is a huge opportunity for her. She ran that personal best at Arkansas at the Tyson Invitational indoors on the 200-meter banked oval, now on the brand new resurfaced Benyon track at Azusa Pacific She's in the top 3 of the racing field, right up alongside Heidi Nelson of Rice. Nelson, make that Nielsen correction. In fact, it is Nelson. Got a couple of alternate sources here, but Heidi, either way, she represents Rice. She's right there in 3rd. And has been a really strong contender for her team through the years. Now as a junior as well. Another athlete looking to get beneath that 17-minute barrier. Running her first track 5K. She was 7th at the American Indoor Track and Field Championship in the mile. And at 4:51.46, so can she use that closing speed to potentially claw back our leader, who's about to hit the first 2K of the race. The 2nd kilometer much slower than the first. It went out in a 3:15. 2nd K around 3:21, and the field hasn't really lost many steps on her, and that's where she's got to set aside and cast aside the doubt of, oh, did I make the wrong move by going out for herself? Nope, it's too late. You made that decision, and now you've got to pay it forward. Arlette Concepcion has led the entire race. She's going to continue to lead for the time being. How much longer will the pacer pull the next group through? That's one thing we're going to keep watch of, as well as our new number 4 runner. That's Brianna Burak of Drake. 7:16 with 7 laps to go. 2,800 meters remaining. In about 300 meters, once we hit the top of the main straightaway, that'll be our halfway split, so that'll give us another idea of where these runners could potentially end up. Like we said, many athletes in this field, the slowest of our 4 open sections of women's 5K-A, are aiming for their first sub-17. You just love to see the coaches and athletes getting warmed up, having their teammates out there, roaring them around the track. We've got a Wingate runner, Evie Brooks, in this as well. She's moved her way smoothly up through this field into the top 3. We've got some Texas Longhorns, Tennessee Vols, Iowa State Cyclones, all sorts of conferences and schools represented here. It was around an 8:17 first 2.5K. So just outside a 16:30 pace, as Arlette Concepcion, the initial pace setter, has stepped aside, and now the field is coming back. North Dakota with Eliana Malnouri in 3rd, behind Heidi Nilsson of Rice. And one behind her, the aforementioned Brianna Burak, the freshman from Drake. After that, look out for South Dakota State's top runner in this, Ashlyn Hilliard. She's in 5th as we currently stand. She wears the golf cap. Look out for her with hip number 24. Concepcion, the field now single file. We got a couple Cal Baptist runners looking to move their way up through the ranks. Some of whom, if I'm not mistaken, ran the 10K. One of them that was entered to is the Lithuanian-born Carolina Bliujute. She drew hip number 23, not exactly showing to the front of this field thus yet, but I did see Seda Pinar of CPU. There she is in hip number 27, so she's not one of those athletes. It would make complete sense if Bliujute were not in this race. Is running a 10K and a 5K in back-to-back days, racing a 10K and a 5K back-to-back days. It's one thing to run, let's say, 9 miles. That is light work for many of these ladies in a high-volume week. But to do it racing-wise, that's another story. Concepcion, though, she is sticking on the lead. Nothing has changed as far as that conversation goes, we've got a runner from Akron moving her way up. That's Megan Hippel. Her teammate Moses Lecoque moved to number 2 in his school's all-time history, over 10,000 last night, to win the final event of day 1. But now moving up to take over the number 3, now the number 2 position. The girl with the golf cap, Ashlyn Hilliard. They just came through the 3K split in the upper 1030s, low 1040s. So that latest K was nearly 320. So not a bad 3rd kilometer if you consider it. Although, may have gotten my math wrong. No, it was yeah. Less than 4 laps to go now. We'll keep an eye on that as we go. I believe the 3K split was when they crossed the start-finish line, so yes, it was, as they had 2 kilometers remaining then. That was our first 3,200 meters just beneath that 10:40, and I would reckon if that were the case, then our 3rd kilometer of the race was in the upper 320s, if not close to 330. So 3rd kilometer almost always going to be the slowest of the 5. That's the middle portion of the race. That's where you start to feel it in your core. Moving up on the outside, we've got the Golden Gopher, Taylor Isabel from Minnesota. She's all the way up into 3rd now. And as we continue in these final 2 kilometers, now soon to become our final 1,200 meters, once we hit the start-finish line next, it seems like that's the point in the race where athletes start to make their moves towards the front, positioning themselves. Not necessarily kicking or trying to break anybody, or putting themselves where they need to be, where they plan to be coming into the race. Tactics in these long-distance races are so difficult to execute because you'll come into the race with a plan and then all of a sudden somebody else does something that you weren't expecting. Athletes will tell you all the time you can't control how others perform. And so having the wherewithal to control and execute your own performance can make winning races like this and PRing in races like this all the more impressive, as it is South Dakota State's Ashlyn Hilliard leading into the final kilometer. Let's check our latest split. 13:19, if not the upper 13:18s. And so, looking pretty good as for the chase for sub 17. Alyssa Hilliard. Ashlyn Hilliard, correction. The Colorado State transfer to the Jackrabbits of South Dakota State. She knows what it's like to break 17. Having gotten within 6 seconds of the 16 flat barrier. What kind of a last 800 could she put forward here? Heidi Nielsen of Rice in 2nd. She again has not done so. In her first track 5K, more impressively, she has the chance to completely shatter her 17:26 cross-country personal best. They have left the wave lights behind. Those are likely a lot closer to that 17-minute pace, if not the 16:30s. The push for 3rd, sitting with Wingate. Evie Brooks, field very much more spread out than we've seen in the earlier laps. Some of our runners that were once in the top group now just fighting it out within the chase packs as Nielsen moves up on the outside shoulder. Look over right for Ashlyn Hilliard from South Dakota State as she now finds herself back in a 2nd. She's been relatively in that top 5 since the first K on and is going to need to kick it hard if she wants to reel in Heidi Nielsen in the final lap. Brooks of Wingate looks strong, so too our leader through the first 2+ kilometers. Concepcion of Houston Christian in 4th, but she is about the furthest athlete that can contend and have a possible chance at this rate of chasing down Heidi Nielsen, who is extending her gap on the back straightaway. Just look at her teammates cheering her on, almost trying to keep up with her. She's running so fast out there. Under the lights at Bryan Clay in prime time. 15:51:52 with 200 meters to go for Heidi Nielsen. 35 is going to be a tough last 200 for her, as that would get her to a minute-plus improvement. The wall of spectators continuing to grow. And Heidi Nielsen coming off of the final turn in the first of 4 open women's 5K A sections. A number 1. Heidi Nielsen from Rice. Brooks from Wingate finishing like a train. But Heidi Nielsen, 16:29, 16:28:65 confirmed. Brooks just beneath the 16:30 barrier, and Concepcion rallies for 3rd at 16:31. Such phenomenal efforts by the top athletes, even some of the finishing athletes. You look at Mia Hoffman of North Dakota State. Though she was towards the back in that field, she still summoned a nice sprint finish at the end. Looking at the full results, Isabella Evans of Southern Utah. She made up some significant ground in that last lap to get up for 4th place. Ashlyn Hilliard of SDSU holds on for 5th. And Melody Espinosa, one of the 2 Texas Longhorns, she and her sister Marissa were in this race. The twins from UT Austin go 2 in the top 10 in the first section. That was our final finisher. Aspen Fulbright of Iowa State in heat number 1. Heat number 1 of the men is getting up next with not much time in between. It's 6:50 right now. Just about the scheduled departure for our first men's 5K. Our fastest that we've seen thus far came, I would argue, last night in the men's invitational 10,000 meters. Just having a look at our splits from last night, we saw the top group of guys go right around 14 flat. If not the upper 13s, I think they were just outside of 14 flat, but this morning our fastest 5K that we saw was a 14:05:48 by Jude DeVries of the Masters. And so who will be the first to break 14? It's very likely going to come from this heat. Just how likely and what would they need to get that done? Sub 14 pace for a 5K. We'll break it down for you. You need to see average 400 splits of 67.2, as our early lead is shared by a couple of teammates who will be jointly pacing from San Francisco, it looks like. So they're going to try and set us off. They certainly did so in that first 200. Man, they were just barely outside of 30 flat there. And with that considered, you got to think that sub 14 is in the bag. Looking at our top racer in this, he wears hip number 2. That's Chase Atkins of Bellarmine. And right behind him, wearing hip 24, is Juan Shataka from UC Irvine. Atkins, in his junior campaign, he's one of those athletes just on the cusp of sub 14. He ran a nice 10K opener at the Raleigh Relays in 29:06:30. He was even a 2-time placer at ASUN Indoor Track and Field Championships in the 3 and 5,000. 14:07:09, his fastest all-purpose 5K. Chase Atkins running with hip number 2. Now in 4th in the overall race as Juan Shantaka takes over the lead of the expected finishers from UC Irvine. Shantaka grew up in California, stayed home for college. San Clemente is where he originates. He's gotten the chance to compete in the 5K at Big West Championships. He was 22nd last year as just a freshman. He ran the 1500 at Bryan Clay last year, so really stepping it up, trying to see what he's got in the longer end of his range. And as for what he's found since then, the Magnum Invitational definitely showcased some big improvements. He went 14:11:32 to win his section at the tail end of March. Here comes the first K split, 2:47. And so considering that they'd need 67s, let's compare that to what that would take for a K split. That would take a 2:48 to maintain that 67 per 400-meter pace. So they're doing a fine job of keeping that sub-14 trajectory going. And so long as they stay together, I'd reckon that somebody's going to have the ability to kick below 14 on this night. So nice to see a double pace-making duty out front by the teammates from SF. That's what a lot of these athletes are ultimately going to need. Get to where they need. 3:54 with 9 to go. You can see a couple guys showing temptation to move up on the outside there with hip 36. That's Ryan Mitchell, the Bulldog from the Zags. He's trying to link up with his teammate who's already infiltrated the top 3 in the race. That's Sammy Anderson wearing hip number 23. You see him in the white kit in 3rd. It looks like we may have Gonzaga 3-5 right now with UT lurking on the outside. That's one of 2 Longhorns in this race. They've got Nicholson Knight and Hudson Heikkinen. Just getting a sense of some of our key contenders. There's hip number 11 in between the Gonzaga teammates and the Texas Longhorn. That is Tryon Jardin from the Nevada Wolfpack. He's trying to wedge his way through there to get in contact with the Pacers. One of them looks to be stepping aside as we head towards our first 2K. Remember, that first kilometer was a 2:47. The second one is going to be a 2:48, but still averaging sub 2:48 per K pace is exactly what we need to finish below 14, the goal. Right there in second now, behind our lead pacer, is Cameron Hatler of Pomona Pitzer. He's found his way nicely to the front, rocking the stash under the lights, having a grand old time. Looking at Hatler and what he's done through his years with PP. 14:11:59 over 5K. He broke 30 in the 10K at the Mike Finelli Classic to open his outdoor season towards the very beginning. 29:52.14 is our final pacer, steps off. He is now the leader. Cameron Hattler of Pomona Pitzer, who's taken part at multiple D3 national championships. If we flash it back to last outdoor season, he was a two-time All-American. In fact, he achieved All-American honors in the steeple, second-team All-American honors this past indoor season in the 5K, placing 9th, and even in cross-country, he was 8th. They were below 7 minutes as they hit the top of this main straightaway, so 14-minute pace is still very much attainable as they come to the latest split with 6 laps to go. That is 2,600 meters with 24 to go. Porter Whitworth of Salt Lake has moved into the front. Right there, leading over a guy who's been towards the front the entire race, Chase Atkins. And then in third, another guy who's been in a similar position, Tryon Yarden. Yarden in that navy blue, having to wipe the sweat off the left cheek there. You saw Cale Mulholland of Loyola Chicago moving his way up into the top 5 with hip number 5. He's right there. Atkins is on the shoulder of Whitworth. And here comes Montana State's Owen Smith as well. It is Atkins, Yarden. Now Smith into third over Whitworth. A lot of guys taking horizontal glances to make sure that they can find some decent space somewhere in lane 1. A lot of guys towards the rear of the pack not able to find such space. Atkins going to try and stretch this thing out. Remember, Chase Atkins, one of just about every competitor in this field, looking for his first sub-14 5K. We're likely going to keep increasing the standards as we go. As we said earlier, this meet has been getting only faster as the years have gone by. Last year, we saw the meet record set in an epic sprint finish. Brian Musau ultimately got to the line in 13:13:29. Musau, of course, a longtime standout for the Oklahoma State Cowboys. Not competing at Bryan Clay this year in the 5,000 meters, but always a competitor to watch for sure. Chase Atkins up to the final mile, 9:34. Let's keep that in mind and see what kind of last 1,600 close we're going to get. Do not forget about Owen Smith of Montana State. He's shown the bravery to take it up for the lead, and just look at the change in the makeup of this field. We saw a lot more than 4 guys in our picture 400 meters ago, and even now we're getting thinner and thinner, down to 3, down to 2 as we head into the final 1,400. That is 3.5 laps. Yarden and Atkins the closest to challenge Owen Smith of Montana State, a senior who's run all sorts of events through his years, from the 800 all the way up to some cross country and track 10Ks. He even broke 10 in cross country, broke 30 correction in the 10K. Back at the Mountain Region Cross Country Championships when he placed 28th. Ended up going to nationals and placing 72nd in 2023 after breaking that 30-minute barrier at regionals. This is Owen Smith, who's looking to get after his 5K record of 14:11.84. Again, not the fastest coming in, but he's got 1:55.800 closing speed, 3:49 over the 1,500 meters. You got to think that, in addition to another event that he's done before, the steeplechase, you got to think that that's going to help him as he moves forward. The battle for second is now between Tryon Yarden of Nevada and Chase Atkins of Bellarmine, with our fourth place runner now, Porter Whitworth of Salt Lake. if you recall, heading into the final half of the race, they were well behind these pacing lights. You see those green lights on the inside of the track. Owen Smith is continuing to pull away, now into his final 800. He's gonna need something well below 220 if he wants to break 14. We got some other guys that are gonna need to close beneath 210 if they wanna get that, but I'd reckon that Smith is not the only one with a chance to do so. As we continue, coming up to the final 600. Just look at that gap, beautiful shot by our crew. Here's another great depiction. Those guys behind him volleying for second just midway through the backstretch as Smith hits the 200 split. Jardin still holding it over Atkins. And Smith and the orange spikes. The Under Armour kit for Montana State in his final 500 meters of his 5,000 meter race. Let's see what kind of the last lap he's gonna need. The average, remember, that we denoted was a 67 low. If he simply cruise controls it home in that, and he can get that sub 14 that he's been striving for throughout all 4 years of his Montana State career. He began as a young freshman in the fall of 2021, beginning his outdoor season as a senior in 2025. His season best outdoors, just a 14:48.74. Both that and his personal best are about to get shattered as he's in the final 200 meters with a 50-plus meter gap on Tryon Jardin of Nevada, rounding the far turn, getting all the oomph from his supporters that he needs to come home your first heat winner in the men's 5K at Bryan Clay in the A group. This is Montana State's Owen Smith. He's driving hard to the line. He looks over his shoulder and looks ahead, celebrates with his first sub 14. How about Whitworth from Salt Lake getting up for second over Jardin of Nevada? And fourth place goes to Belmont's Nick Moda, coming out of nowhere to get the rest of the field. The official winning time about to be confirmed. Thank you, finished results. What a great run. Owen Smith. I'm sure he's always had a nice smile, but I don't even think he knew it was this nice until he first broke 14 just now. He's catching his breath to converse with his supporters, so I'm sure the smiles will return once he sees the confirmed result on the clock. 13:54.22, 17-second 5K lifetime best. That's a common theme that we're going to see throughout the day, throughout the night here at Bryan Clay. We've still got 3 open sections of the women's 5K to come. This is section number 2 coming up on the line, running 12.5 laps. We saw a lot of our competitors strive for that 16:30 barrier in the first heat. I think we're going to be getting a lot closer to 16 flat in this second heat. The lap splits that you're going to want to keep in mind for that. 16 flat. Each lap is going to need to be pretty consistent, around the 76.8 range. We're going to get a final few instructions from the starter as our final finisher crosses the line. And we're running a very tight ship here at Bryan Clay. In between men's and women's heats, they're only allowing 16 minutes of clearance, and in between women's and men's heats, 20 minutes. So the idea is that since we just fired that gun at 7:06, 7:07 Pacific time, that the next men's heat will go at 7:24. So they've even condensed it to 18 minutes. Wow. The first heat had a little bit more to give. This second heat, playing out similarly to the first heat, very tactical start. Where are the wave lights? We do not have them yet. We'll see just where they factor into the equation as the first 200 goes out in around 37, which is ahead of that 76 pace. You need 38 for that per 200 meters to break it down to the micro level. As of right now, we've got a young lady wearing a sideways 8 and another young lady wearing a vertical 8. Annalie Weaver of Utah State, she wears the vertical 8, and she'll be the top racer in this. One other athlete that I'd like you to watch out for in this section has a very formidable last name, of course, as does her husband, but wearing the BYU colors, Kylie Mance. That is Connor Mance's wife. Of course, Connor will be running as one of the favorites to win the Boston Marathon on Monday. And Kylie Mance, there was a great article published in Runner's World Mag, a company now inhabited by former FloTrack resident Ashley Tishins, but it has such a great title, right? Kylie Mance started running after marrying an Olympic marathoner and realized she's extremely fast. Imagine that for a headline story. Kylie Mance in the mid-pack up this 5,000-meter run at Bryan Clay. We'll see just where she factors in, as it is still all about the Utah State athlete, Annalie Weaver, the closest to our pace setter, the only one really showing her interest in the pace being set. Looks like we're still a tad outside of 16 pace here. Seeing some team tactics play out. That is 3 Tennessee Volunteers that you just saw towards the back. Miskana Araya, Callie Tucker, and Summer Schuster repping for the University of Tennessee. Right there in second, wearing hit number 17 is Sophia Strange of Oklahoma Baptist. Here comes our first K split. 3:17, so the first heat went out faster as far as that split went. What will this second kilometer look like? We saw a pretty sizable deceleration in the second and third Ks in the first heat. What will the second heat look like? I'm always impressed whenever I see a second K that is either evenly or negative split from the first K, because it's just so rare to see, right? A lot of times you have that free energy in the first K, the pacers going out hard. I think the dilemma came with the lack of wave lights. You see our pace setter now having to run side by side with them, but that prevented the field from becoming really the typical strung out paced field that you'd expect. Right there on the outside, Valentine Gematai of Stephen F. Austin. You see her in the black kit in between the lane lines of 1 and 2. She is in 4th overall, 3rd in the race. Got to keep that constant distinction just for those of you who are unfamiliar with what a paced race looks like. We've even got Portland's Samantha Pruss in this also. She wears the Nike striped kit. Another striped kit of the Adams State Grizzlies towards the top. You see the green and gold for the Grizzlies. That is Adams State's Katie Hughes. She wears hip number 12 and she's in the top 10 currently. Christelle Elkins, she's running unattached, wearing hip number 21. She's currently post-grad, as she most recently competed collegiately for UC San Diego. She's actually a junior still, so she might be redshirting this season. That's sometimes what you'll see. Sometimes you'll see unattached athletes running post-grad, searching for that professional avenue. We're going to hit our 2K split once we reach the starting line next time. The aforementioned Katie Hughes moving really well around the outside for Adams State. Alamosa, Colorado, where the Grizzlies call home. And I was talking to a number of members of our broadcast team, and they couldn't help but notice just how many athletes from these towns of higher elevation show strongly in these distance events. Alamosa, Colorado is over 7,000 feet above sea level, so it's no question as to the value that that training gives the ASU athletes. 6:35 our second kilometer split, so a very good differential, much smaller than we saw in the first heat between K1 and K2. Pace setter still going. Elkins of UC San Diego running unattached in fourth. Now pace setter steps aside from Colorado State. She's trying to keep the pace going as she strides it out. And taking a glance at the watch, taking a glance back up, and seeing that she's in front is Annalie Weaver of Utah State. 7 to go. So now that the pace setter has stepped off, you can just really tell the way that the field is changing in its formation. Lexi Hare of Colorado School of Mines, a new competitor in the mix. There's Kylie Mance with the BYU kit that you just saw cross your frame. We'll see what kind of kick that she can display. Mance, when we tell you how new to running she was, she never ran track in high school. That's just how much of a rookie she can consider herself. But in her collegiate debut at the Stanford Invitational, running 34:57. I mean, we saw athletes struggle to get that time. She would have beaten athletes at the Bryan Clay Invitational. Such an impressive story, and for her to even be hanging here this well in her 5K collegiate debut, I'm sure she's raced plenty alongside her in the company of her husband, but there's so many great storylines to follow along here. We've got a ton coming in the elite section of the women's 5K, one that you're not going to want to miss, and personal best chased in the remainder of this second open 5K. Utah State's Annalie Weaver. What does she need for a personal best, you might ask? 16:28.17 at first heat. Finished just outside of that realm. And keep in mind that when she achieved that, that was all the way back in 2023 at Peyton Jordan Invitational in Palo Alto at Stanford. So Annalie Weaver, nearly 2 years removed from her lifetime best, has found herself in the right atmosphere to go after it. What about Katie Hughes of Adams State in second? Coming up to our 3K split, 9:52. So good average there, just beneath 3:17 per K. That latest kilometer, I want to say, was right around 3:16. So we're getting faster as we go. Katie Hughes, she's never broken 17 before, so this would be a really impressive display. Ran at D2 Nationals, didn't make it out of the prelims in the mile. Even competed at cross-country championships for Division II athletes. with her team that, of course, ended up factoring very well. The women of Adams State won by well over 60 points, over 65 in fact, 61 to 127 over West Texas A&M. And that's a program that we saw set some D2 records last night in the 10K. D2 records, Ghana national records. Just to remind you of some of those superstars from the fast heat of women's 10K. Of course, Naomi Addo of West Texas A&M was there. Juliana Sacato of Iowa Western Community College, she set the D2 record. It was not the 10K D2 record, it was the Ghana national record by Naomi Addo. But when you just consider the volume of record holders that West Texas A&M group can produce, the depth of Adams State to contend with them and dominate them that much across country. Katie Hughes, that is what she and the Grizzlies are all about, as they hold a sizable lead over our new third place runner wearing hip number 25. That is Kelly Stroop, yet another unattached athlete. Having a look at what she brings to the table. We saw her spend her collegiate years at Grand Canyon University. She now competes post-college. So far this season has run only 1500s and 800s. 5K set her lifetime best. Guess where? Right here at Bryan Clay. 2024, 17:16:59, and she has put herself now into second place over Utah State's top runner in this, Anna Lee Weaver. Remember, she came in with a bit of a bigger chip on her shoulder in comparison to her previous personal best, but when you put everybody in the same race at the same time, that can change things. Katie Hughes, she's put herself out there to be caught for sure, as she's coming up to her final kilometer. Remember, averaging just outside of 3:15 per. This one, a tough 3:21. Remember, with 2K to go, it was around a 9:52. Might have been a little bit below there. But outside of 3:20, I'd say the fourth kilometer in this race has certainly been the slowest in terms of pace. So curious to see what they'll produce in the final kilometer, as it's now once again become a two-woman race, but it's Katie Hughes this time clashing with Kelly Stroop. The last time she raced a 5K competitively on the track was here at Bryan Clay over a calendar year ago. She had great improvements in the 2024 season, got down to 4:33 in the 1500, and is looking to set herself up with another strong season opening 5K on the lead now on the second to last lap, with a slim advantage over Katie Hughes of Adams State. They built a huge gap of around 30-40 meters over the next closest racer. Looking to see who's behind now. Here's one of our three Tennessee Vols, Summer Schuster. And the second Vol in this, Miskana Araya. Remember, they were three of the bottom four at the beginning portions of this race. I'm not going to count out the Vols in their chase for a top three spot, as they're currently duking it out with Portland's Samantha Pruss. But ahead of the wave lights and ahead of the field, heading into the bell lap in heat number 2 of the women's 5,000, 15:09 with 400 to go, for the Grand Canyon University alumna Kelly Stroop. And she is continuing to pull away. She runs with a lower back kick than you might typically see, but that allows her to keep that turnover going. She is so fixated on everything in front of her. She knows she's got this race on lock, but she's got an opportunity to take a huge, massive chunk off of her lifetime best. Remember, last year at Bryan Clay, 17 minutes, 16 seconds. Could she take a minute off of that? It's going to be really tough as she'd need a 30-second last 200, but still, she is absolutely on pace to set the new top mark. She takes a look to see if she can assess where she's at time-wise or distance-wise. She is clear of the field regardless, hitting the final home straightaway. Here she comes, Kelly Stroop. A minute has gone by since her previous PR, but 50-plus seconds will do, I think. How about 16:21.85 for Kelly Stroop, and sub-16:30s for second, third. Great runs by our top competitors. Look like our top three. Fourth just missed it. That ended up being Kenya Dene of Colorado State, whose teammate did the early pacing duties, but Kelly Stroop, while that was all happening, she hung back in the mid-pack and emerged in the final kilometer, closing very hard. I'd reckon that she was sub 3:10 on that last K, far and away faster than the fourth kilometer, as the majority of the field has come in. And yes, the top three did break that 16:30, emerging into the top three overall standings now. Katie Hughes of Adams State, 16:25.63. We can't forget about the national rankings conversation, folks, for Division II athletes coming in for 5,000 for the women thus far this season. We've only had a select few get below 17. Top 37 on the list are below 17, but that 16:25 is number 7. Of course, number 1 for her team on the season, and we're only going to get faster from here. This is heat number 2 of the men for the 5,000 meters at the Bryan Clay Invitational in the Open A sections. Whole lot of contested racing to come from here. We'll see what kind of pace they set. Remember, sub 14 was the general goal for our top finishers in the previous heat, so 13:45 perhaps could be where we're looking at here, if not 13:50. I think both are very attainable just based on how fast the track is running, based on the conditions. Again, it's low 60s, upper 50s right now. Minimum wind. And even if the wind were a little bit more significant, you'd have to think that just their proximity to one another keeps them fresh. Wow, 64 seconds through that opening 400. So they're moving early. Here comes our first kilometer, pace through rather similar to the first section. I think our pace setter saw that early 64 split and said, I got to take it easy a little bit. And so dialing it back to a 2:47 for the opening kilometer. Remember, 2:48 was 14 flat pace. And so if you subtract a second per kilometer, that gets us to 13:55. Start to get a sense of our top runners in this field. Looking to beat the time from the first Open A section. Owen Smith of Montana State, 13:54.22, right there. Behind the second pace setter, we've got the Minnesota Golden Gopher, wearing hip number 13, Noah Kohut-Jackson. He's right there ahead of Ty Davis of Weber State, one of the many Wildcats that we've gotten to see this weekend. You can see in the very recognizable Cougar strip, Garrett Stanford of BYU. He's 6th in your view right now as Davis now moves up into 3rd behind the two pace setters. Davis from Weber in his senior year, yet another versatile powerhouse for the Wildcats. 5K, 14:19.08, the fastest we've seen him go before. And he's even run some 10Ks before. He's broken 30 in the 10K, yet another cross-country stud. Steeplechase ran that at Stanford. He can do it all, this guy. Eight to go, so just under 2 miles remaining in this 3.1 mile affair. Jaden Holdsworth of Salt Lake, we've seen some of his teammates put together some really exceptional finishes from the 800 up. He is right there in 4th behind the Golden Gopher in 3rd. We got another Weber State Wildcat wearing hip number 9 in the golf cap. Look out for Jacob Peterson. He's trying to join forces with his teammate, rocking all the Adidas colors. The two Wildcats. We saw, of course, two Minnesota Golden Gophers in this. We've got 3 teammates from Drake, all in the middle towards the rear of the pack as we're coming up to our second K split. This is a lot. Looked like we passed the second K before. This is 2,200 meters at 6:08, so say we were in the lower 530s. If we flash it back to where we were at the 2K, just trying to remember, and considering that they've kept the first and second K pretty consistent despite the drop off of one pace setter. Once we hit the top of the main straightaway, in 100 meters time, we'll have our halfway split for this field. We've also got Michael Murphy running unattached tonight, moving up into the top group. Most of the field right around 7 flat, so 14-minute pace. Staging for a kicker's affair. It is now neck and neck with the white and blue jerseys in varying shades, varying patterns. Michael Murphy, the unattached athlete, moves ahead of the previous leader from Weber State, Ty Davis, but they've both since been passed by a significant move from Elijah Osageda from Performance Elite Running Club. They're heading down the back straightaway, trying to catch up to the pacer. You see there on the inside, Matisse Borse, West Texas A&M. On the outside, hip number 19, Henry Bourne of Missouri S&T. Even Cal Baptist, they've got some runners in this. Victor Rosas and Finn Anspach. And in case you're wondering, how do we know that this guy in front is a pace setter? Well, again, it's the sideways 8 that usually gives it away. He takes a look over his left shoulder. That could perhaps be indicative if you consider what the pacers are doing versus what the racers are doing. Let's consider the pace that they're moving into the final 2 kilometers. 8:24 there, so they've been averaging right at 2:48. So again, another race developing, shaping up for 14 flat, and expected to break open once we reach the final stretches. Pace setter's definitely opening up a bit of a gap, as he now steps off after 3,200, just beneath 9 minutes. Michael Murphy, if we consider a little bit more about his unattached background, he represents the Tullamore Harriers track club. You see it on his vest. Out of Ireland. So the Irishman previously competed collegiately at Nelson University. In fact, we may be considering a different Michael Murphy, but either way, this Michael Murphy, we're focusing on the present day. He's in 2nd place. Tullamore Harriers. Sluncha, as they say on St. Patty's Day. Henry Bourne of Missouri S&T. The tall runner in white and green has taken the lead. Expanding a little bit upon his abilities, he is a 14:04 runner, and he just found that out a few weeks ago at the tail end of March at the Wash U Distance Carnival, even coming off a 3:48.76 1,500-meter lifetime best at the Minor Invitational held in Rolla, Missouri, at his hometown Missouri S&T track. Missouri S&T, known as the Miners. Bourne has been part of his team's Midwest qualifying group for D2 Cross Country Nationals. That's his only NCAA national experience thus far, but I'd reckon he wants to move up the Division II rankings as we speak, just considering what D2 athletes have done in the men's 5,000 thus far this season. Of course, we got to see a couple of our top runners in Division II compete last night in the 10K. Some of our top 5K guys stepping it up in distance, but considering the 10K, 5K groupings correction, Tituan Legreese of Wingate, of course, has the national lead at 13:28.23 as we're coming up to our final 2 laps at 11:43. In the NCAA, only 11 collegians prior to tonight have broken that barrier, that elusive 14 flat for smaller school competitors. Henry Bourne, with his 14:04, still came in as the 13th fastest in the country, and he is absolutely blowing away this field. You could see staggered runners all throughout in the chasing groups, now becoming chasing islands, as now in 2nd, we see from UC Davis, a good run by Muhammad Ahmed, another guy that we saw last night. Entering the final 10th of the race now, just about even with those wave lights. We forecasted we're going to be in the 1350s. Now pulling ahead of them is Henry Bourne, of Missouri Science and Technology. 12:48 with 1 lap to go. And nearly a full 4-second advantage on the next closest competitor from Cal Davis. He's continuing to extend his gap. He has made such an impressive stretch kick to this point and is still yet to really incorporate his arms into the equation. Henry Bourne, the sophomore from MS&T, the minor, digging for gold as he hits the final 200 meters. What's his split? 21, 22. He's never broken 14 before. A majority of this field can say the same. How many can get it done in heat number 2? The pacing lights have come back. He's feeling the lactic. But he's got to go to another level if he wants to unlock it. Looking to become just one of 12 now to break 13. Can he win? No. Look out. Here comes a massive comeback on the outside at the last moment to steal the victory. 13:56. What a run home by Thomas Croshaw of New Mexico State. Bourne will still get a personal best despite not locking down the win. He really, really went for it and pushed himself to the very edge. But how about that last surge? Thomas Croshaw. (13:56, 51 confirmed. That's a big personal best by 8 seconds over 5,000 meters. Stephen Goldie gets up for second. Bourne hangs on for third. As for the D2 national rankings, he will move with his 13:57.48 to number 10 nationwide. He's got to be plenty confident with that regardless of surrendering the lead. Heat number 3 of the women's 5K has to be called back to the line. Let's hope nobody was infracted, as that would be a real shame and put a major dent in this field of 30 plus now, wouldn't it? They should be good to go, all jokes aside, and looking to go even faster than what we've seen thus far. 16, round 18 is what we're looking for to beat the previous winning time from section number 2. Putting that into full perspective. In fact, 16:21.85 by Kelly Stroop, the former Grand Canyon University standout, has the lead thus far in the compiled standings. And so, breaking in on the one bend waterfall. They're gonna fight it out for position. Let's see if we got another Colorado State pace setter. You would think this was their home track, the Rams. But it is not. It is Azusa Pacific University, home of the Cougars from Southern California. And we're so happy to have you here to witness the 2025 Bryan Clay Invitational here on FloTrack. I'm Carson Gambaro. We've got you for another 3+ heats of 5K. This heat included to make it 4 before we reach the invite sections at around 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight over on the East Coast. As of right now, the top racers that we're watching, Elizabeth Crawford of Pepperdine has pulled up right behind the pace setter, past 400 meters, and right behind her is Hannah Fredericks of the Masters. Weber State. Can't forget about the Wildcats. Can't forget about Lori Murphy. She is there in the dark blue on the outside of lane 1. Great shot by the drone crew under the lights, hitting the first 600 split just beneath 2 minutes. So nothing too backbreaking as they're right about even with the lights. It's almost like the lights are a multicolored envelope encasing all the runners in. Pretty cool visual. Once we hit the finish line, we'll assess our first kilometer split. The fastest we've seen has been right around 3:15 thus far. And so let's see if they can go any faster here. That's what it looks like it's going to be. Definitely lower 3:10s, lower than we've been seeing. 12, 13, 14. All right. So sub 16:15 pace. That's pretty significant right there. If we consider where that ultimately shaped them up for, if they keep this up, that's 16:10 pace for a full 5K. I'd imagine that the meet organizers factored in each and every athlete's seated time and personal best coming in, and chose to set the wave lights at something just a little greater than that. A little bit of separation towards the back of the pack, but I'll say it again, nothing too backbreaking right now. Coming up on the outside, almost urging the pacer to go a little quicker. A little too satisfied with the pace, perhaps, is Elizabeth Crawford of Pepperdine. Considering what she has done, Lizzie Crawford, 16:38.36, her best 5K coming in. She's run a couple thus far this season, including that time for her opener. She's run another 16:55 this season, in addition to a 16:47 back towards the beginning of March. So 3 5Ks over the past month and change. It's been a few weeks since she's raced, so she's done a good job of keeping herself fresh. That's how you really got to be when you come into invitationals like Bryan Clay. Last year, she did a 1,500 and a 5K in back-to-back weeks, and despite a couple in between, the Mike Finelli Track Classic of the Bryan Clay Invitational, 18:11, correction, 18:13 was the time that she achieved last year. But even so, that was right around her PR at the time. So she has come a long way ever since. Lizzie Crawford from Pepperdine, right there in second behind our pace setter, is doing a great job of keeping the field together and consistent. Hannah Fredericks of the Masters has been right there on the inside, representing the Mustangs of the Masters University. Out of Santa Clarita, California, the senior has a lot of range to her name, a 33:46 10K runner. She found out her capabilities over the 6+ mile distance at Stanford a couple of weeks ago, and even got herself a little speed test in, a 2:13:06 800 at Pomona Pitzer last week. Just 5 days removed from that, how will her twitch fibers be feeling towards the latter stages of this race? That was our first 2K split right there, around 6:30. So again, the second K, nothing too drastic. You're going to see that natural decline of pace between first and second K, sometimes between second and third, or third and fourth. pacemaking duties are done for the CSU Running Ram, as it is now Epperdine's top runner, Elizabeth Crawford, continuing to race and lead. We got a new leader heading up to our halfway point in the race. This is Lori Murphy of Weber State. We called her out earlier as being in that top group that is starting to separate from that rear group, just out of frame at the moment. Let's check out where we are with 100 to go on this lap, around 8:09. So multiplying that by 2, that gets us to 16:18, which is 3 seconds quicker all-purpose than we've seen thus far for the women. And coming up to the final 2,400, 6 laps to go for Lori Murphy. Murphy, another athlete that found a new 10K personal best at the Stanford Invitational of 34:16.22. She ran the 10K at Big Sky last year. That was her 10K debut at conference and ended up finishing 7th for the Wildcats. So she found out a little bit of what her raw strength was, going 36:17 in May last year, taking 2 minutes off of that in her 10K opener in 2025. So she is in a different mode this year, to say the least, considering what else she's done. 5K, 16:40, 67. You have to think she's looking to smash that tonight, among other objectives and initiatives. But getting the win can be just as fulfilling, especially when you've got additional competition starting to make its runs towards the front. Natalia Ruiz-Lara of the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, UNLV right there on the shoulder all of a sudden, and she's got some company on her immediate rear. Leslie Salas of DBU, Dallas Baptist University, is right there with 5 to go, 9:48 through 3K. So still just outside of 3:15 average. They've slipped it off from the first K of 3:14, but not drastically, so that's a good sign. It is Lori Murphy right ahead of Natalia Ruiz-Lara, now adjacent to her as they hit the backstretch for the 5th to final time. Still right there from TCU. First time we're calling the name of Mackenzie Bailey, wearing hip number 7. She's been steadily working her way up through the field, as well as now Ruiz-Lara has taken over the advantage. We're going to hit our final mile from the finish line momentarily. Now's the point where, if you're one of those chasing groups, look at hip number 8. That is Wyoming's Abigail Whitman. If you're in her position, now's a good time to make a move. Now's a good time to start injecting the pace. You see her moving to the outside. She was previously a little bit out of touch with the field, but now she finds herself in the top 6, realizing that Natalia Ruiz-Lara was starting to get away. Now she's just got to get around the runners that are still ahead of her. Hannah Fredericks is there in second from the Masters. And she looks to be covering this move quite well from the UNLV standout, Natalia Ruiz-Lara. Our cowgirl, Whitman, had to run a lot of extra distance on that turn and lost a little bit of her momentum. We'll see how much she can get it back. Now with 1,400 meters remaining, hitting the 200 start. 9 laps gone by with 3.5 to go. There's Ava Gordon of Liberty. You saw her moments ago. We saw Annika Cutforth of Wisconsin. All the schools you know and love Colliding in the same heat, Emily LaMontagne of Clemson as well. Look at her in the purple and orange. Right there in that second group of 4, top center of your screen. They can all see Hannah Fredericks in second and Natalia Ruiz-Lara in first, and are using each other to stay fresh. Lori Murphy of Weber State has had to do a lot of front-running duties for the chase group, so how will that affect her gas coming home? These top 2 still right on the pacing lights. Check it out. Right on the front end of the pacing lights. Sometimes athletes like sitting and kicking off of them, hanging towards the back, but Natalia Ruiz-Lara feeling a little bit extra ambitious tonight. A junior from Nevada, Las Vegas. 16:24:31. She's shown some of the sharpest 5K capabilities that we've seen among our top competitors. But Emily LaMontagne from Clemson, she doesn't want to be forgotten. LaMontagne, initially committed to UNC, transferred to Clemson. Grew up in Littleton, Colorado, so she knows what it's like predominantly to train at altitude. She's moving up past the Weber State runner into third with 2 laps to go. Natalia Ruiz-Lara still leading over Hannah Fredericks of the Masters School. The Masters University, Hannah Fredericks, the senior who stayed home for college, grew up at Saugus High School in Santa Clarita, found the perfect fit, and has won multiple GSAC titles in the 5K in 2022, 4x8 as well, an NIAI All-American for the 1500 5K and even indoors in the DMR. What can she do in terms of winning this race, setting personal bests, and potentially reeling in Lara in front of her? Chase group there. Only 3 remain in that conversation. Lori Murphy is there. We've got Chico State's Aresh Molina in there. And wiping the sweat off her nose is Emily LaMontagne, the UNC transferee from Clemson, as Hannah Fredericks of the Masters makes the move into the front. The SoCal native looking to win at Bryan Clay in the 3rd Open A section of the women's 5K. 1 to go. Natalia Ruiz-Lara with that long stride, trying to extend it as much as possible as she feels the full weight of the 3.1 miles on her shoulders. But Hannah Fredericks is pushing through it, running with those acute elbows, keeping that movement nice and efficient, snapping it down, turning it over. Every step forward, breathe in, breathe out. 200 meters to go. 15:41 high. Look over left shoulder. Sees about 10 meters of clearance from the Chico State runner, Aresh Molina, as Hannah Fredericks looking to get below her lifetime best of 16:32.66. She could shut it down from here and still get that. How about a sub 16:20? She is well ahead of the pacing lights that are on track for that margin. And Hannah Fredericks, yet another personal best left in the dust. 16:16.91. And an absolute cavalcade below the 16:30 barrier. Really great effort by Hannah Fredericks. We talk about positioning in these races. I think that was a huge difference maker for her. Just constantly staying towards the front no matter who joined her, who fell off that hot pace. at pace that very few athletes in this field had ever done before. Aresh Molina included. 16:21.15 for her. Lori Murphy of Weber State gets up for third. Elise LaVille from West Texas A&M in fourth. With Ava Gordon of Liberty, she made some great moves up to that pack to get in at 16:25 for the Flames from Conference USA in Lynchburg, Virginia. Section number 3, getting ready to go for the men's Open 5,000 and underway. You know the rules, it's 12.5 laps, and once you hit the top of the main straightaway after these cones, it is free range of racing from there. Our winning time from the previous section was a 13:56.51. Our overall lead in the men's 5K Open A group is 13:54.22 by Montana State's Owen Smith. And hello there. Who is that on the pacing group, you might ask? Is that Craig Engels out there? That looks a lot like Craig, I'm not gonna lie. He's wearing the Nike kit, that's our first checkpoint. He's got a decently short mullet style haircut. Doesn't... Yep, that's Craig. We got Craig Engels in the building, everybody. Craig Engels came out to Bryan Clay to pace the 5K. How about this? One of America's fan favorite runners who had his fastest season in years since his 2019 campaign, where he won the USA titles in the indoor and outdoor 1500, came back to run about as good as he could have possibly done in a year where the 1500 was faster than it has ever been. Cole Hocker going all the way to win the Olympic title. And despite not making Team USA, he was just so grateful for all the support that he received. And he's out here at Bryan Clay just having fun. I think that's just been the big focus of Craig Engels at this stage of career. He's in his 30s right now. He knows that very few of his best days of running, let's face it, are ahead of him. And so he's just looking to make the most of all the opportunities that he's got left. As for what Craig has done this season, though we don't exactly expect him to finish this race, I wouldn't be surprised to see him tomorrow in the 1500, by the way. But just looking what he's done thus far this season to assess his possibilities at another show-stopping campaign, he ran a community race recently, so he's yet to have his true season opener. I think when you're an athlete like Craig Engels, that's an important thing to consider, especially when you consider just how late the World Championships are in Tokyo. We know Craig is more so focused on the 1500 than a distance like the 5K, and so the world standard that he'll want to be shooting for if he wants to make a run at Tokyo, the Olympic venue that he missed out by one spot in 2021, and the mark that he's going to have to go after is 3:33. We know he's done that at his lifetime best. Earlier this month, we saw him run 290 miles in 29 hours. He's been driving his RV all over the country. We can't forget about that. It's not all about racing. It's not just about having fun on the track. It's about having fun off the track. I could imagine some of the runners in this heat are having an absolute blast right now. Not just being paced by Craig Engels, but with this distance carnival atmosphere. Lars Laros of Wingate, the most notable of the racers. Right behind him, Dawson Gunn of the Colorado School of Mines, guys that are likely very familiar with each other, guys that have raced each other at D2 Nationals. And right there in hip number 12, Marco Perez of Cal State Fullerton. Behind the top three, you've got the Colorado Buffalo. In between them, Charles Robertson. We were so caught off guard by the surprise Craig Engels appearance that we've yet to consider any splits. Our latest is going to be our first 2K, and Craig is doing a pretty exceptional job. We've yet to see anything sub 5:30. It looks like we're going to be just outside of there, but the quickest that we have seen to this point, a 5:32, averaging us in the 2:46s, 13:50 pace set by the national USA champion, former Ole Miss Rebel, Craig Engels. Laros continuing on with Craig, as the rest of the field losing a little bit of ground, now trying to cover is Utah State's LJ Floyd. We had to do a little bit of catch up on the good old Instagram for Craig Engels as to what else he's been up to. His most recent race announcement, he was confirmed to run in the men's 1500 at the Drake Relays. That'll be just next week, so he's definitely gearing up for that. He's going to be in with a lot of guys that have done some damage in the collegiate ranks. Foster Malik of BU, an NCAA mile finalist, one that sticks out to me. Damian Dilcher, former Iona Gale. Even Vince Ciotti, a guy who's been really crushing it in his years as a pro. Josh Thompson as well, former US champion. And so Craig Engels is going to be part of that field on the West Coast next week. But just to expand a little bit more on his RV project, the 290 miles in 29 hours. Driving the RV for the Speed Project. Huge new development for the Nike group. Craig Athor on Instagram for all the additional info. Even at the end of March, he ran a pretty wild triple. Paced to 600 meters of an 800 and 121. 3K of a 3K, basically an 8:25 race. Let's not forget a 4-hour span triple. There was 3K, by the way, even quicker than 8:25 and around 8:17. So pretty good timing on my behalf. I'll take the credit for that. And then 1,300 of a 1,500 at 3:50 pace. And we're just giving you all the latest and greatest Craig Engels updates because it's not often that we get to see athletes of his caliber. Of course, we have seen them come through Bryan Clay, but to do the pacemaking duty is just such a unique appearance. And so we will let that sit and let the race continue. We'll see how much longer he wants to go. He's passed 2 miles already. He's coming up, leading the group through 3,600 meters. 3,400 meters, it'll be 36 next time they hit the starting line. And remember what we previously observed, how it was Lars Laros of Wingate who was initially the only one willing to go with Engels' pace. The Dutch runner, Lars Laros, who comes from Oosterhout. He's a junior this year. And he is brothers with Niels Laros. Niels Laros, for those of you that don't know, is the Dutch national record holder over the 1,500 mile and the 2K. He's just 19 years of age. Niels is 20 today. And Lars Laros is just 2 years older than him at 22. So he and his younger brother, two very good distance runners. Craig Engels, the American, doing the pacing for the Dutchman, repping for Wingate. Craig Engels, what did I tell you? He paced 1,300 meters of a 1,500 meter race back in March. Could he be willing to stretch this thing out to 4,000? That's what he's about to hit right now. 11:03 with 2.5 remaining for Craig Engels and the top Wingate Bulldogs. So if you consider per K pace, that is just outside of 2:45. Craig has been picking up the pace for these athletes, and they seem eager to go with him. It almost looked like Laros was close to clipping Craig Engels' heels with the front strides of his knees there. Look over the left shoulder for Engels, leaving a little bit of room on the inside, but he still has full intent on keeping this thing going about as long as he can. I remember back at the Boston University opener, this reminds me of Loic Scompern of the Colorado School of Mines. He had broken, as Craig Engels prepares to step off, he had ran nearly the entire 5K after breaking the 3K Division II record. He ran well over 45K, 4.5 that being, as Engels steps off at 4,400 meters with less than 600 to go for the rest of the field. He has done his job, and we look forward to seeing Craig Engels for the rest of his 2025 campaign. And we look forward to seeing what happens in the remainder of this race, wearing hips number 4 and 1, two of the top 3 Wingate Bulldogs. We got Joaquin Campos in there in second, and right there in third with the Adidas kit from CPU Cal Poly is Chris Caudillo. We are at the bell and ahead of the pace lights, and now starting to kick it home is the Dutchman, Lars Laros, 22 years young, from Wingate. Can he fend off the charge by Chris Caudillo? He's really starting to dig it in now, and he finds himself in the lead for Cal Poly. But Laros isn't broken just yet. He's got his teammate to work off of and finish hard. Also charging with hip number 17 is Juan Rosales of Adams State. But using that turnover and pushing ahead, pushing the ground away, as they say, is Chris Caudillo of Cal Poly, set up by Craig Engels himself. Chris Caudillo wants that personal best. He's looking for a 14:25. How about this? 13:45 for Chris Caudillo. Representing it, Bryan Clay. That's right around 40 seconds right there. He even got under 13:45, 13:44.89. There's Craig Engels getting to celebrate with the man whom he just paced to his new PR. Little photo op for Chris Caudillo. I'm not sure he was informed about this, but a lot of times when something unexpected happens, whatever it be, whether it be exciting, whether it be nerve-wracking, how you respond is a real testament to your mental fortitude as an athlete. And I think that's the most impressive part of all from Chris Caudillo's effort. Caudillo, 41-second lifetime best, your Heat 3 Men's Open A 5K winner. Patting all of his competitors on the back. Joaquin Campos of Wingate. Charles Robertson had a strong finish to get ahead of Lars Laros. And Juan Rosales right behind them. Two Cal Poly runners finishing in the top 6. Spencer Pickren and then Dawson Gunn of the Colorado School of Mines getting up for 7th. Looking at Campos, though, of Wingate, back to the D2 national rankings. That 1347 is number 5 in Division II. Only his teammates, Antonin St. Pierre and Tituan Legris, are ahead of him now, as well as West Texas A&M's William Amponsa, who broke the D2 record in the 10K. And then Kobe Fraza of Grand Valley State in 4th. All of those times achieved at the Raleigh Relays, and we've still got plenty of fast heats featuring plenty more fast Division II competitors and Division I competitors in the 5,000, not to mention on the women's side. Up next is heat number 4, our final Open A section of the women's 5,000 meters. We'll have another section of men's Open A in around 20 minutes time, and then 4 heats apiece per gender for Invitational 5K. Let's keep it going, everybody. 12.5 laps. Fastest time that we've seen in the women's 5K thus far was from that 3rd heat, 16:60.91. That's Hannah Frederick's time to beat. The men's fastest time was achieved just now, 13:44 by Chris Caudillo, paced by Craig Engels with our Nicole Beckelman trackside now. Nicole?
Thanks again. Yeah.
Craig, a very pleasant surprise to see you here. What brought you out tonight?
What's up, FloTrack blimp? What brought me out here? I was going to pace the 5K for Cal Poly and ended up finishing. I mean, kind of. I was cheering on the team. They were trying to get a regional mark, and I paced 4,200, I think. Yeah.
So what have you been up to the past few months?
LIVIN. Just living, baby. My home is parked right outside in the parking lot, and I've just been traveling around enjoying life, but also running, and somehow got fit along the way.
Normally you have the mullet. What's inspired this new hairstyle?
Honestly, the mullet's a little overplayed, but I don't know. People kind of like it, except for women really don't. My mom included, so I kind of went with a different look. I don't know. What do we think?
It looks great. Many people have come up to you after this race. What advice would you give to them?
Dude, just have fun with it. They seemed like they were all enjoying it, like not putting too much pressure on themselves. And at some points, obviously, you got to put pressure, but just enjoy it, dude. Enjoy the journey, enjoy the races, enjoy your team, enjoy every single thing about it, because at some point it's going to be over.
As for your running career, what's next for you? Do you have any goals?
I'm going day to day. I have an 800 on Saturday at Mount Sac. So I got that, and then next week I have the road mile in Des Moines and a 1,500 in Des Moines. And then I'm going to go train with Donovan Brazier in Flagstaff. He's back. The man's back.
Very fun. As you said, your home is right outside. You live in an RV. As someone who maybe is thinking about the RV life, what are some words that you would give them to convince them?
Shoot, man, come buy an RV from me. I got a bunch. But, dude, it's absolute lifestyle for runners. You wake up, make your breakfast, go for a walk or a run, hang around all day. I usually go to Planet Fitness and shower up, hit a lift, and then I go hang out or go for like a trail run or whatever's around the area. It's pretty sweet for running. I don't know if I'd recommend it to most college runners, but if you're an aspiring pro or aspiring homeless, then come join me.
All right, thank you so much, Craig. I appreciate the time.
Thanks so much. Peace out, FloTrack.
Thanks, that was awesome.
Thank you.
Wow, wow, wow. We heard it here first. Not only is Craig Engels back, but so too is Donovan Brazier, the 2019 world champion, former 800 American record holder. This is an exciting time to be a track and field fan right now, and so much of it to digest. We thank Nicole Beckelman for grabbing Craig for that quick interview as we refocus to our final section of Women's Open 5K. Again, looking to beat a 16:16.91 by Hannah Fredericks of Masters University. So far, it is Emily Little from SMU donning that hip number 24 for the Mustangs. It looks like she's got that lead. Just took us through that first kilometer split. I love the SMU alternate kits in the black over blue there. We've got a couple of other strong runners in this. Maria Fernanda Medina running unattached in the Nike kit. She wears hip number 20 in the white and green. And on her inside, wearing hip number 2, it's Mia Cabrera of Wingate. Hip number 15 as well, Michaela Reed. Two pretty strong unattached athletes that we'll expand upon. Our next important split will come in about a lap and a half from right now. Once they hit the initial starting line, that'll be our 2K split. It'll give us a chance to sense their average pace and see if they're capable of that sub 16. Again, to break 16, to put it in your mind now, you'd need to see 76.8 seconds for each 400-meter go-around. Maria Fernanda Medina, the Mexican native, 25 years young. She's right there. You see her once again with the Nike kit, hip number 20. The Mustang was just doing a little bit of pacing through the first mile in a 5:11, 5:12 as the Wingate Bulldog continues on the front. But Medina, she's had a lot of racing this calendar year thus far. She's ran a couple solid efforts indoors, 1,500 and 800. Didn't really race at all during the month of February. Just one meet in March, and so far in April last week, coming off of a 2:14, 4:31.92 double in the 8 and 15. So stepping up to the 5K, her season best a 16:45.14, lifetime bests 16:04.25 from 2023. What about Wingate? Mia Cabrera, the junior, is in the lead. We're again watching those Division II national rankings to see who can climb those ladders, get those regional marks like we heard Craig Engels seek to do for the Cal Poly runners. Chris Caudillo hit 13:44.41, second personal best. Top time from that 5,000-meter Division II rankings belongs to Annika Esvelt of Seattle Pacific. She's at 15:56.94 from Stanford. Paige Mullen of Pittsburgh State, the closest to her. We've gotten to see her compete. We saw her in the 10K last night. She's at 16:11.62. And other than those two prior to tonight, the company beneath 16:30 in Division II has been very rare. So consider that when you watch the Wingate runners. New Mexico, different conversation. That's Jasmine Wood, who just moved up into number 2 in the race. Wood has yet to run a 5K on the track in her career as a Lobo, but we saw her open her outdoor season in a 1500 and a pretty solid effort of 4:30.89, 48:59. That's 33 minutes, 48.59 seconds at her hometown, at Stanford Invitational. Of course, New Mexico always has good efforts there, so they like to run like it's their home, but it's not. It's the home of the Cardinal, the Lobos. Just like here at Bryan Clay, always pay a friendly visit, sending the very best. And so with that in mind, you have to think Wood's looking for a really fast time to add to her 5K resume. And is ever growing at the collegiate level. Wood comes over from Great Britain after all. She's experienced the thrill of a road 5K as well. 16:13 in Leicester back last March. So that could effectively be the time that she's looking to chase after, as we are coming up to 2,800 meters. The first 7 laps are about to be complete, but feel pretty strung out ever since our early pacer from SMU, Emily Little, stepped off. It is Mia Cabrera from Wingate at 9:06 with 6.5 to go, ahead of the Briton Jasmine Wood. Majority of the field still together, with the lone exception, Brienne Brewster of Minnesota. We'll see if she can get back in it. How about Silvana Northrup of UC San Diego slotting into 3rd, and on her outside moving up is Michaela Reed. Reed spent her collegiate years with the University of Missouri. Graduated this past spring in 2024. Ran 10K at Bryan Clay last year. Took 9th overall in her grouping at 34:12.97 in the second invitational heat. That included, of course, a great win by Taylor Rowe, who's collected a number of big wins here at Bryan Clay through the years for the Stanford Cardinal and beyond. But the former Mizzou Tiger, Michaela Reed, now running unattached. Currently finds herself in 2nd place. And interestingly enough, though she is no longer running collegiately, she is assistant coaches at Butler University. So a great example of how athletes can find ways to continue their running careers, not just as runners beyond their collegiate careers, but translating what they've learned through those years of adjustment, those years of growth and development. We've seen a lot of great efforts out of the Butler athletes, and it's no question why now. Grace Gilbert of Montana State, we've seen some good efforts out of them as well. Brooke Garter of Belmont moving up. And everybody else trying to get position in this final mile of this 5,000-meter race. Open A women's section. Some of the top events to look out for tonight are coming up shortly, but we're going to see just about everything that there is to see from here in this one. I've got 8 in my view, including another SMU Mustang. That's Caitlin Gearin moving up. Remember, her teammate did the early pacing. Gearin in her senior campaign. For SMU, she's looking to go below 16:12.24. So a lot of these runners really on that cusp of low 16:10s. They're right above where the winning time of the 3rd heat came into this section with. And they're all together, not just with each other, but with the wave lights. It is a group of 8 led by Cabrera. And at the tail end of that top group, in that white jersey you see tucked right there behind, minimizing her distance very well in hip number 13, is West Texas A&M's Calcadon Vincido. Remember her teammate Naomi Addo ran the second fastest all-time Ghana record. It beat the old Ghana record prior to last night in the 10K. Just so happened that in the women's invitational 10,000 meters that a JUCO and new Ghana record was demolished by Juliana Sakat. So it's been some good efforts by the smaller contingents, but now comes the former Tiger from Mizzou, current Butler assistant coach, and now current leader on this fourth and final invitational section of 5,000 meters for the open group, Michaela Reed. Cabrera in second. SMU's Caitlin Gearin in third. Savannah Northrup from UC San Diego, can't forget about her, in fourth. And then a side-by-side jostle for fifth between Grace Gilbreth and Jasmine Wood. Into the final 800 we go at 13:37 high. A 2:23 last 800, going to be very difficult from here, so sub-16 will be a challenge. But she's starting her kick now. Michaela Reed, again, 16:12 coming in. We told you earlier about the British runner in this group, Caitlin Gearin, her 16:13 road personal best. We've been assessing the comparison. I know Kevin and I were talking about the difference between road 10Ks, 5Ks, and track 10Ks, 5Ks. The response you get, the pushback almost from the track surface, is different from the road. Typically, you're going to get less pushback than you would from the pavement. That'll give you a little bit more cushion to work with. And so that's what would make a personal record for Caitlin Gearin, regardless of where she finishes, all the more impressive. But we are watching Michaela Reed continue to extend the gap. She's over 15 meters in the lead now. Now just trying to shake away the UC San Diego stud, Savannah Northrup, into the final lap. That was a 76, hitting the final split at 14:53. Northrup, what does she need to set a lifetime best? The junior from UCSD, 16:24.50, the Triton Invitational at her home track just under 2 weeks ago, and she is riding that hot hand. Reed really starting to grimace now. She might have gone just a tidbit too early. And Northrup, though she seems to have timed her move well, is not out of troubled water just yet. Here comes Brooke Garter from Belmont, surging around the final turn, starting to pump the arms, drive those elbows back. Look at the stride of the woman in red, wearing hip number 14. Brooke Garter off the final turn with only Northrup in front. Savannah Northrup hears the footsteps, picks up the turnover, now driving for that line. The Triton from San Diego is going to close out the open 5K with a 16:02. Huge finishes all across the board. There's West Texas A&M in for a fourth. What a strong run by Calcadon Vincido in the upper 16:0s, 16:09.29. Got to watch those D2 ranks once again. That is number 2 in the country for D2 by our 4th place finisher in this latest section of the 5K. As for the Division I ranks, of course, we're going to see a massive shakeup in those as we go. 43 is the number that have broken 16, so our top runners in this group just outside of those in D1. That's important because it's, again, top 48 per region to qualify for the first round of NCAAs. So keep all of this in mind as you assess the times on your screen. Brooke Garter, what a brave charge she made down that final stretch, and she PRs by 22 seconds to take second. Michaela Reed finishes third. Top 4, in fact, all secure lifetime bests. I think that theme has been just about as common as we expected it to be, if not more common. Marching up to the starting line, we got one more section of the open men's 5,000 meter A. Time to beat was set in the third heat, 13:44 by Chris Caudillo from Cal Poly, a 41-second lifetime best to go 13:44.89. The man from Cal Poly, paced by his good friend Craig Engels, to a great mark. And just looking at some of the regional lists for the West, our top 48 in the 5K. To get into that, you needed a 13:56 prior, so it's safe to say that Engels and Caudillo have done the job to get into regional qualifying position, now placing him at number 25 in the West. Now back to the current conversation. This is the men's 5,000 Open A, Section 4. It'll be all invite sections from here as the racers figure out their pacing. Looks like a pair of pace setters once again, one of them wearing the infinity sign, the other wearing hip 25. He could be a racer. 28, that is, that we've got it straight. Christopher Peter May de Leon of Equipo Albatros Talpan. He could very well be racing. Again, we won't really know until we see the first pacer step off what kind of effect that'll have on the field, if it'll change anything. Peter May de Leon or not. Hip 17, Johnson Legat of TCU. The Horned Frog right there in hip 17 of the all-white. And right there in between them. Let's see if we can tell just who is in second in the race. Now looks to be in third in the race. That is Mark Huizar of the Hoka Aggies running club. We've got lots of Hoka representatives here. NAZ Elite's going to have a few pros in the top 5K heats. They've definitely been working their way up the ladder, up in their shoe game, if you will. 139 for the first 3,000. Make that 600 meters. We are a long way away from 3,000, I can tell you that. But so far, good early pace being set. Around an average of 2:12 per 800 and 2:45 pace for a full K. 2:45 gets us to a 13:45. But as we've seen, that is very much beatable. And this field, being given the designation of the fast heat, you'd think that they're going to do just that. But a great pace-making job right on the front of those blue lights. And now, ready to take our first kilometer. It's going to be just outside of 2:45, so 2:46 with 10 laps, 4 kilometers, equivalent to the length of a distance medley relay to go. Let's expand upon some of our competition. Christopher Peter May de Leon. What has he done thus far? The Mexican athlete this season has not had a whole lot of documented racing, but last year was racing all the way into November. He competed in the 1500 at the Mexican Championships, placing 4th in that event. Perhaps looking to work on some longer end of his range. I mean, the longest race he ran last year was 3,000 meters. Whether it be flat or over the steeplechase, he didn't really dabble much in the 5K. It's been a while since we've seen Christopher May do just that, but his 5,000 meter abilities we're going to see here tonight, as well as the rest of these athletes. May doing a good job staying reserved. just came through our 1400 split with just under 9 to go. Still have a good view of our field of 30 plus. Israel Reyna, a guy who Kevin mentioned last night as a national champion for Mexico. Arturo Israel Reyna, now 26 years of age. Holds a personal best in the 5K of 14:08:38, so he's in a really good position, competing with some really good competition to try and come away with a new lifetime best. Still Johnson Legata, TCU in third. And in fourth, in the red kit, Evan Horgan of Lewis. Western Washington, they've got Kevin McDermott representing for the Vikings. He's in the top 5 in the varying shades of blue. But a big move coming up from 6th now into 4th, now into 3rd over Legat. Just for positioning purposes, not necessarily a hard move, but really like what I saw from Ryan Riddle of Missouri Southern, now tucking back in. He was towards the rear as we hit 2K at 5:33. He was right towards the back of the pack and now finds himself in the top 3. Realized he needed to take advantage of the deceleration of the rest of the field. I'd argue that his splits from K1 to K2 were a lot more even than the rest of the field, and that will definitely bode well for his long-term strength, depending on how up for this pace he's feeling. Ryan Riddle looking to go after a 13:51:11, so he's got one of the faster PBs coming in. He ran that at the end of March at Wash U at the Distance Carnival. Ended up taking the win in his section. Even placed 3rd indoors in the Mid-American Intercollegiate Athletic Association Conference meet over 3K. A Division II indoor finalist in 2023, 6th in the 3K back then. Even a former conference champion. Whole lot of accolades at the D2 level for Missouri Southern's Ryan Riddle. To go along with his mid-race veteranship, the man whom you see 3rd from the front in green behind the Mexican 4th place 1500 finisher last year, Christopher May de Leon, and the pace setter about to take us into our final 6 laps of the race. Just came through beneath 7 minutes, so we're sub 13-minute pace right now for the full 5K. At the top of the main straightaway, that was when they hit the halfway point, 2.5 kilometers. At first K, again, it was a 2:46, so we knew they were going sub 14 pace. The question is, how close can they get to that 13:44 set by Chris Caudillo of Cal Poly, the new 25th fastest time in the West region for Division I. Our pace setter looks to be repping for Shore Athletics Club, ahead of the racing field that is still very much at large. Always gotta love a race that isn't decided before it's over. I saw some drums going on the inside of the turn there. We got some percussionists in the building in addition to distance running specialists. It's just hard to hear from where we are because of the blaring music. We got Pompey on the loudspeaker. At least I thought it was Pompey. It was to the tune of it, similar key. Wouldn't be surprised if that was part of the playlist for the weekend. Field starting to stretch out as they just hit 3,000 meters at the latest lap split. And are gonna hit 2 miles. Pace setter stepping off, leading it up. Christopher Peter May de Leon at 8:51 high with just 1,800 meters remaining. So based on who looks to be in contention right now, it's a group of 10 with a smidge of separation from the next 3. I'd argue, though, that the entire lead group includes all 13 of them. Christopher Peter May de Leon has led the entire way around, but who did we call out earlier? But number 22, Kevin McDermott of Western Washington. He's moved his way right up into second. He's really done some damage out of the GNAC conference. 10th at Division II Nationals in the indoor 3K. A double conference champion in the 3 and 5. Set his personal best of 13:50.77 back at the indoor season at the Washington track in Seattle. So how will he do here at Bryan Clay? He ran the 15 here last year, the 15 and 5 here last year, the year before, and did the same double in 2022. What's he going to achieve here in the 5K? Can he come away with the win? He's coming up to the final 3 laps, having taken the lead from Christopher Peter May de Leon for the first time all race, and still right there in third is the aforementioned Ryan Riddle of Missouri Southern, who made a long, steady draw up to the field, as did McDermott himself. So really all of these guys having executed different versions of the same strategy to get to where they are right now. Evan Horgan of Lewis as well. Let's not count out the man wearing the red Adidas kit. He's going to have a strong chance to come home with a good mark. 13:51.46, what he's looking to take down. That was good enough to place him 7th at D2 Indoor Nationals. So we got 3 guys that know what it's like to finish top 10 at a Nationals meet. Look at a climb well inside the top 10 in the D2 national rankings. As we saw in the previous heat, the number 2 Division II time was set on the women's side. The men's side, if you want to break into the top 5, you got to get ahead of Ryan Riddle's current number 5 time of 13:51 outdoor 11. Had to specify that as there have been some faster 5Ks run indoors. We already know about Romain Legendre's D2 record in the extremely low 13s. But these guys are here performing outdoors. We've got the 5th fastest man in the country lurking in 3rd. He's in 2nd now effectively as he's moved up on the outside of the country's number 6. But how far into that conversation can we see others go? Lewis University, another D2 school, so Evan Horgan has that same opportunity in his outdoor 10K opener. He ran a 28:47.32 at the Raleigh Relays, so how much strength can he use to hold on? Do not forget about the Kenyan-born TCU Horned Frog, Johnson Lagat. He is right there now on the back of the top 3, the 14:13 collegiate runner at his best. Trying to give it his all to stick as close as he can as Riddle pulls away. Ryan Riddle, Ryan's revenge into the final 200 meters. He's going to need to go quickly here. He is moving. 13:44.91, the overall time to beat. 34.89, excuse me, as he comes off the final turn. Horgan is not done. This is an epic race to the line. You can just see his coach willing him all the way through. Ryan Riddle keeps his form and will have a chance to increase his ranking significantly on the D2 list. Horgan as well. And then Lagat for TCU, your top 3 across the line. 13:40.04 for Ryan Riddle, moving him to number 3 in the country for Division II. Horgan will slot in right behind at number 4 with his new personal best. A massive achievement for him at 13:41. 13:40.52 officially confirmed as Legat goes 13:43 for third. And with that in mind, Chris Caudillo's 13:44.89 from Cal Poly, that'll keep him right there at number 5 overall, as Freddie Richardson of Lamar just snuck beneath it by 700ths to take fourth in the final section. Christopher Peter May de Leon from Equipo Albatross Tlalpan, he'll finish in 5th. Jason Clayton and Israel Reyna, the former Mexican champion, finished 6th and 7th. Aiden Puffer of NAU set the stage for his teammate Drew Bosley to come in the fast section, finishes in the top 10 in the fastest open section. Here with our winner, all green for Missouri Southern, and Ryan Riddle. A great run for him. Having a look at some Missouri Southern history for men's track and field, Ryan Riddle just ran a very significant time over 5,000 meters because he just beat Vincent Kiprop's school record. That was the indoor record correction. So looking at the outdoor records, the 5K record was also held by Vincent Kiprop, and that was a 13:48.88, an 8-second school record outdoors. And we've got plenty of other school records that we're going to see set by athletes all across the country, high school, collegiately, at the Penn Relays presented by Toyota. The 129th running of America's oldest track and field meet is live on FloTrack next week. And the day after we conclude at Penn, we bring you the TCS London Marathon. And just a week later, the UIL Outdoor Championships back here at Azusa for France and Last Chance, and the Track Fest on May 24th. Action-packed month, to say the least, coming your way. And an action-packed year. The CIF Championships to follow at the tail end of May. July 5th through 12th, we'll be back on track for the AAU Primary and Club Championships. Don't forget about the Junior Olympic Games to come between July 23rd and August 1st. And the Cross Champs on December 4th in Austin. We've got around 8 minutes between now and the start of our next event, the Women's Invite 5K. One of the events that I know I've been looking forward to. I know that you have all been looking forward to.